To start this off, I want to address the fact that this game has very positive reviews on Steam, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't have positive reviews or anything, but honestly, like, this game doesn't really hold up the test of time, I guess. Like, the story elements of the Witcher series is here, and there's a lot of like backstory and lore to be gathered from playing these older games and stuff like that, especially this first one, because it's got, the foundation of what the franchise was built off of. But I mean, it just, the questing in the game is a little mundane, and the dialogue is kind of stale, and it doesn't really make for a really engaging situation for me. Like, playing through this was kind of a chore, to be honest, and I mean, I don't know, we'll get into it. So the first thing that kind of threw me off is that when you start the game up, it asks you whether or not you would like to play the game with a mouse or a mouse and keyboard, implying that you can play this as a point-and-click style game, which I thought was very odd. Not that that's like a bad thing. I know point-and-click games are, some of the best games in the industry have been point-and-click games. It's like, especially for like, paving a foundation, I guess, for gaming in general. But it makes the combat is really like boring almost. Like, it's just like, hey, click on this enemy, and then when the cursor lights up, you can click again, and that will do more damage to them, and it'll create like a combo. But that's really like pretty much it. Like, the only other depth to the combat is that there's 3 different fighting stances. Big enemies, you have to use the heavy fighting stance, and then quick enemies, you use a like faster fighting stance, because you got to be able to hit them, I guess. Other than that, there's a fighting stance for fighting a group of people where you basically just swing your sword like a madman, so that way you can hit all of the people around you or whatever. So I mean, I don't know, it's just kind of lacking. Your first hour of the game is spent in Kaer Morhen, which is where, the Witchers live. But it's honestly just a huge tutorial section on teaching you how to do combat. And then after the combat section is kind of over, it teaches you like how to make a potion and, just, simple stuff that you'll need for the game. But the cinematic for the game when the game first starts up is like this like really cool, like really draws you in, like action-packed, like cinematic sequence of you like fighting this monster or whatever, and then I guess it like attacks you at the very end or something like that, and you lose your memory. I don't know. The beginning of the game is kind of slow, and it's just not really like, it doesn't really draw you in. And then even when you leave Kaer Morhen, like the whole situation is that they killed one of your people and stole your stuff, but you don't really have any sort of attachment to this character that died. And I mean, the dialogue kind of suggests otherwise, where he's like, oh my gosh, I gotta find these people that murdered our guy, and I gotta get our stuff back. But like, you've known the guy for like 20 minutes, so there's not really an actual attachment there from the player's perspective. So I don't know, it doesn't really draw me in. After getting to the city of Vizima, you start to like help these people out, because there's some sort of like demon dog infestation, so you're having to run around and kind of help them out, because if you don't help them out, they won't give you information on where to find these people that stole your stuff and killed your dude. So this was super like long and drawn out, and just kind of like dumb in my opinion, because so the town itself is very large. Like, not that it's large, but you don't have a sprint option or anything like that. So like the travel time to get from side to side of this town is, longer than you would want it to be, I guess. Especially with the fact that the landscape itself is just like a few houses here or there, and some fences that block off like a simple shortcut that could have been made to get you, where you need to go. But you start off on the first side of the area where the inn is, and they're like, hey, you need to go talk to the Reverend. So you go all the way across the town to talk to the Reverend, and he's like, oh my God, I need to get rid of these, ghost dogs. So I need you to run back through all that stuff you just walked through and light all these little, church totems or whatever with a candle. So you go back and you light all 5 of these, and then you go back to him, which means you had to walk all the way back to the inn pretty much, and then all the way back to him just to do this one quest, which was you fighting maybe like a couple of dogs here and there while putting a candle in a torch. And then you talk to him again, and he's like, wow, that didn't work at all, even though your character tells him like, hey, this isn't gonna fix your problem, but I'll do it anyway as long as you pay me. So then you have to go off and do more like simple stuff where he's like, oh, go talk to this person about this, and like it's just you basically running back and forth all the way across this town like 3 different times, where it could have been so much simpler, and just, I don't know, I feel like it would have all been fixed with a sprint key or something, or just even like making a shortcut to where you're not having to deal with like walking all the way around this circular area so many times. Like it really drains you. I'm sure there's a lot more to this game that's a little bit more interesting than what I've played, but honestly, like, the game doesn't really draw you in the beginning, and I think that's what kills most of it for me, at least, is that there's not really any incentive to learn what the story is trying to push you towards at this point. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of stale. I can't really say anything else about it. But I mean, there were some funny parts. At some point, I was playing, and the inn, like, there was some person trying to go into the inn, and they just didn't have a walking animation for some reason. So I thought that was super funny.
A notice board. Maybe I can find some witcher's work.
All that being said, though, I mean, if you're really interested in the Witcher series, I would recommend starting off with maybe the 3rd one, because it's a really great RPG game in general. Like, it has so much to offer, and I mean, they made it super easy for people that were newer to the series to get into. So, I mean, if you're just really looking for an RPG game to play that's got a lot to it, and you haven't played The Witcher 3, I know a lot of people already have, I would recommend starting with that one. But if you've already played the 3rd one and you maybe want to get more of the backstory or some of the lore from the world, I mean, you can play these games. They're not like awful by any means. They're just, this one's pretty dated. I'd probably have to give this game like a 2 out of 5. I hate to give it such a low score considering people love, this franchise so much. But, I mean, really, like, if you're going to play one, just play one of the later titles, because this one really just lacks in a lot of areas. So, I mean, that's just personal preference. If you're super, adamant on playing it, go for it. Like, I'm not trying to stop you or anything. But, yeah. As always, though, there's some links on the screen if you guys want to watch some of my other videos, and there's a subscribe link in the middle if you guys want to see some of the future stuff that I make. Other than that, I hope the next game has a little bit better of a review, honestly, because the last couple of games have been pretty lacking. So, I'll see you then.